The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour diner buzzed overhead as Maya wiped down the sticky counter for what felt like the 100th time that night. Her sneakers had holes that let in the cold December air of downtown Los Angeles, and her uniform smelled like grease no matter how many times she washed it. She glanced at the clock, 2:47 a.m. Just 3 more hours until her shift ended. Then she could catch a few hours of sleep before her morning classes at UCLA. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya looked up to see a figure in an expensive black hoodie and dark sunglasses slide into a corner booth. At nearly 3 a.m., wearing sunglasses indoors was either the mark of someone trying too hard to be mysterious or someone with a serious hangover. Maya grabbed the coffee pot and walked over, her tired feet protesting with each step. "Coffee?" she asked, not really looking at the customer's face. "Please." The voice was familiar, deep and smooth in a way that made her pause. When she finally looked up, her breath caught. Even with the sunglasses and hood, she recognized those sharp cheekbones and perfectly sculpted jaw. Ethan Kross. The Ethan Kross, Hollywood's golden boy, with 3 blockbusters under his belt and a face that graced magazine covers worldwide. What was he doing in her rundown diner at 3 a.m.? Maya's hand trembled slightly as she poured the coffee, trying to act natural. She'd seen every one of his movies, had probably spent more money than she could afford on movie tickets just to see him on the big screen. But now, sitting 3 feet away from her, he looked tired, human. "Thanks," Ethan said quietly, wrapping his hands around the mug like he was trying to absorb its warmth. Maya was about to walk away when he spoke again. "Wait, what's your name?" "Maya," she replied, surprised by the question. "Maya." He repeated it like he was testing how it sounded. "Can you sit for a minute? I know it's weird, but I really need to talk to someone who doesn't know me." She glanced around the empty diner. Her manager was in the back office, probably asleep, and there were no other customers. Against her better judgment, she slid into the seat across from him. "But I do know you," she said softly. "You're Ethan Kross." He pulled off the sunglasses, revealing tired brown eyes with dark circles underneath. "Right now, I'm just a guy who's having the worst week of his life." Maya studied his face. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched in his features, the way his shoulders sagged like he was carrying an invisible weight. "What happened?" Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "My publicist, my manager, my entire team, they're all freaking out because the tabloids are having a field day with my love life, or lack thereof." He took a sip of coffee and grimaced. Apparently, being single at 28 in Hollywood means you're either gay, a player, or completely undateable. The studio is worried it's affecting my image, my marketability. Maya frowned. "That's ridiculous. You're allowed to be single." "You'd think so, right?" Ethan leaned back in the booth. "But my next movie is a romantic drama, and the studio wants me to seem more relatable, more like the kind of guy women would want to fall in love with. My publicist says I need a girlfriend, a real one, someone sweet, genuine, down to earth." He paused, looking directly at her. "Someone like you." The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt her heart skip a beat, but not in a good way. "I'm sorry, what?" "I know how this sounds," Ethan said quickly, leaning forward. "But hear me out. I've been sitting here for the past hour watching you work. You're kind to every customer, even the drunk ones. You've got this genuine smile, this way of making people feel comfortable. And you're beautiful, but not in that artificial Hollywood way." Maya's cheeks flushed. "You want me to be your fake girlfriend?" "Not fake," Ethan said, then corrected himself. "Well, yes, technically fake, but it wouldn't feel fake. We'd spend time together, go to events, maybe grab dinner sometimes. I'd pay you, of course, enough to help with whatever you're dealing with." His eyes flicked to her worn uniform, her tired expression. "I'm guessing you could use the money." Maya's first instinct was to laugh. This was insane. Ethan Kross, millionaire actor, was sitting in her diner at 3 a.m. proposing some kind of pretty woman arrangement. But as she looked at him, she saw something vulnerable in his expression, something that made her believe this wasn't just some elaborate prank. "How much?" she heard herself ask. $50,000 for 3 months. Maya's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, clattering against the table. $50,000. That was more than she made in 2 years at the diner. It was her entire student loan debt. It was her mother's medical bills. It was freedom from the constant stress of choosing between textbooks and groceries. "I can't," she whispered, even as her mind raced with possibilities. "Why not?" "Because I'm nobody," Maya said, her voice cracking slightly. "I live in a studio apartment in East LA that I share with 2 roommates. I work night shifts at a diner and go to school during the day. I shop at thrift stores and eat ramen for dinner. Your world and my world don't mix. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. What if they did? What if, just for 3 months, we pretended they could? Maya thought about her conversation with her mother that morning. The hospital bills were piling up, and her mom had been trying to hide how bad things had gotten. Maya had been looking for a second job, maybe something she could do between classes, but it meant less sleep, less study time, possibly lower grades. "What would you expect from me?" she asked quietly. "Honestly, just be yourself, attend some events with me, maybe a few photo ops. Let me take you to nice restaurants, buy you some clothes that'll help you blend in. And in return, you get paid, and I get a break from the constant speculation about my personal life. And after 3 months, we have a very public, very amicable breakup. You go back to your life, I go back to mine. No strings attached." Maya stared down at her hands, calloused from years of manual work, nails bitten short from stress. She thought about her mother, working double shifts as a housekeeper, even while battling cancer. She thought about her own dreams of becoming a social worker, of making a difference in the world. $50,000 could change everything. "I need to think about it," she said finally. Ethan nodded and pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number, in case you decide you want to talk more about this?" With trembling fingers, Maya entered her number into his phone. As she handed it back, their fingers brushed and she felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with static. "Maya," he said softly, "I know this is crazy, but sometimes crazy is exactly what we need." After he left, Maya stood behind the counter, staring at the empty booth where Hollywood's golden boy had just offered to change her life. The rational part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, that she was setting herself up for heartbreak and humiliation. But the desperate part, the part that was tired of struggling, tired of watching her mother pretend everything was fine when it wasn't, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was her chance. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Take your time deciding, but know that I meant every word I said tonight. E." Maya stared at the message until the words blurred together. Outside, Los Angeles glittered with the dreams and broken promises of millions of people just like her, all hoping for their big break, their chance to escape the endless cycle of barely getting by. She had no way of knowing that accepting Ethan's proposition would change both their lives in ways neither of them could imagine. That what started as a business transaction would become something real, something beautiful, and something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, class, and what it meant to truly know another person. But first, she had to find the courage to say yes. The bell above the door chimed as another late-night customer entered, jolting Maya back to reality. She pocketed her phone, grabbed the coffee pot, and went back to work, her mind spinning with possibilities and fears in equal measure. 3 hours later, as Maya finally hung up her apron and walked out into the cold LA morning, she made her decision. She pulled out her phone and typed a simple message, "I'm in." The response came back almost immediately. "Thank you. You won't regret this." Maya hoped he was right. As she walked to the bus stop, dodging puddles and breathing in the smog-tinged air, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a turn towards something extraordinary. Whether it would be extraordinarily wonderful or extraordinarily catastrophic remained to be seen. Maya stood outside the Beverly Hills boutique, staring at her reflection in the gleaming window. Her faded jeans and old UCLA sweatshirt looked completely out of place among the mannequins draped in designer clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She checked her phone for the 3rd time. Ethan's text had been simple. "Meet me at Olivia's on Rodeo Drive at 2 p.m. We need to get you ready for tonight." Tonight. Their first public appearance together at some charity gala. Maya's stomach churned with a mixture of excitement and pure terror. The boutique's glass door opened with a soft chime, and suddenly Maya was face to face with a woman who looked like she'd stepped off the pages of Vogue. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed, with the kind of smile that was professionally warm but didn't quite reach her eyes. "You must be Maya," the woman said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I'm Olivia." Ethan called ahead. "We've been expecting you." Maya shook her hand, acutely aware of her own bitten nails and calloused palms. "Nice to meet you. Come, let's get started." "We have a lot of work to do," Olivia said, already turning toward the back of the store. "Work." Maya bristled slightly at the word, but she followed Olivia through racks of clothing that probably cost more than most people's cars. She'd agreed to this arrangement, she reminded herself. She needed to see it through. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of fabric, measurements, and opinions Maya didn't know she was supposed to have. Olivia pulled dress after dress, each one more expensive and intimidating than the last. Maya found herself standing in front of a three-way mirror, wearing a black cocktail dress that hugged her curves in ways that made her feel exposed and powerful at the same time. "This one," Olivia declared, adjusting the neckline. "Classic, elegant, but not trying too hard. Ethan will love it." Maya stared at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was someone she didn't recognize. Sophisticated, put together, the kind of woman who belonged on a movie star's arm. But underneath the expensive fabric, she still felt like the girl who'd been serving coffee at 3 a.m. just days ago. "How much does this cost?" Maya asked quietly. "Don't worry about that, darling. Ethan's taking care of everything." The words sat uncomfortably in Maya's chest. She wasn't used to anyone taking care of anything for her. She'd been supporting herself since she was 16, working part-time jobs while finishing high school, then full-time jobs while putting herself through college. The idea of someone else paying for her clothes, her life, felt both liberating and deeply unsettling. Her phone buzzed with a text. "How's the shopping going? Can't wait to see you tonight. E." Maya stared at the message. There was something so casual about it, so normal, as if they were actually dating instead of playing elaborate dress-up. She typed back, "It's overwhelming, but good, I think." The response came immediately. "You'll be perfect. Trust me." After leaving the boutique with more shopping bags than she'd ever carried in her life, Maya took the bus home. She'd refused Ethan's offer to send a car, needing some time to process everything that was happening. As the bus wound through the streets from Beverly Hills back to her neighborhood in East LA, Maya watched the scenery change from manicured lawns and luxury cars to chain-link fences and corner stores. Her tiny apartment felt even smaller when she walked in carrying bags from stores she'd never imagined shopping at. Her roommate Jessica was sprawled on their second-hand couch, textbooks spread around her. "Holy shit, Maya," Jessica said, looking up from her organic chemistry notes. "Did you rob a bank?" Maya set the bags down carefully. "Something like that." She'd told her roommates she'd gotten a temporary job as an event coordinator for a wealthy client. Not entirely a lie, she reasoned. She wasn't ready to explain the truth. Hell, she wasn't sure she understood the truth herself. That evening, as Maya got ready in her shared bathroom, applying makeup with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, she caught herself staring in the mirror again. The transformation was complete. Hair professionally styled in soft waves, makeup that made her eyes look larger and more mysterious, the black dress that fit like it had been made for her body specifically. Her phone rang. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. "Hi," she answered, her voice smaller than she'd intended. "Maya, you okay? You sound nervous." "I am nervous. Terrified, actually. I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to be the kind of woman who goes to charity galas with movie stars." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Okay. I'm nervous too. I know everyone thinks this stuff is natural for me, but honestly, most of the time I feel like I'm pretending to be someone else. The confident guy, the charming movie star, that's not really me, that's just a character I play." Maya sank onto her small bed, careful not to wrinkle the dress. "Then who are you really?" "I'm the kid who grew up in a trailer park in Ohio, whose mom worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on. I'm the guy who still orders pizza and stays up too late watching old movies. I'm someone who gets anxious at parties and would rather have a real conversation with one person than make small talk with 50. The vulnerability in his voice made Maya's chest tighten. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that we're both pretending tonight, and maybe that makes it easier, you know? We're both playing characters. You're playing the sophisticated girlfriend, I'm playing the confident boyfriend. But underneath, we're just 2 people trying to figure it out as we go." Maya felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "Okay, I can do that." "I know you can. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. I'll be ready." When the black town car pulled up outside her apartment building, Maya felt like she was stepping into a different world. The driver opened the door for her, something that had never happened in her 22 years of life, and suddenly she was sliding across leather seats toward Ethan, who looked impossibly handsome in his black tuxedo. "Wow," he said softly, his eyes taking in her transformation. "You look incredible. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." As the car glided through LA traffic toward downtown, Ethan briefed her on the evening ahead. "It's a charity gala for children's literacy programs. Lots of Hollywood people, some business executives, politicians. We don't have to stay long, just long enough for people to see us together, maybe dance once or twice." I should probably tell you I'm not a great dancer, Maya admitted. Ethan grinned. Good thing I am. I'll lead. You just follow my lead. The ballroom of the Biltmore Hotel was like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linens, and everywhere Maya looked, she saw faces she recognized from movie screens and magazine covers. The air buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the subtle sound of a string quartet. Ethan's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. Maya was acutely aware of the stares they were attracting, the way conversations paused as they passed, the flash of cameras from across the room. "Ethan!" A woman in a stunning red gown approached them, her smile bright and predatory. "And you must be the mystery girl we've all been hearing about." "This is Maya," Ethan said smoothly, his hand never leaving her back. "Maya, meet Caroline Webb. She's producing my next film." Maya shook Caroline's hand, trying to channel the confidence she'd seen in movies. "Nice to meet you. So tell me, Maya, what do you do?" Caroline's question felt loaded. Like a test Maya wasn't sure how to pass. "I'm studying social work at UCLA," Maya replied honestly. Caroline's eyebrows rose slightly. How refreshing. A woman with substance. The way she said it made Maya feel like she'd passed some kind of evaluation, but she wasn't sure if that was good or bad. As the evening progressed, Maya found herself in conversation after conversation, each one feeling like a carefully choreographed dance of politeness and subtle interrogation. Everyone wanted to know about her, about how she and Ethan had met, about their relationship. Ethan had coached her on their cover story. They'd met through mutual friends, had been seeing each other quietly for a few weeks, but every lie felt heavy on her tongue. It was during dinner, as she listened to a tech billionaire's wife describe her latest charity project, that Maya felt the full weight of the world she'd stepped into. These people talked about millions of dollars, like she talked about $20 bills. They casually mentioned vacations to places she'd only seen in travel magazines, investments and business deals that would fund her entire education without them blinking. If you've ever felt completely out of your element, surrounded by people whose lives seem impossibly different from your own, tell me which country you're listening from. I'd love to know where this story is finding you tonight. "You're quiet," Ethan murmured in her ear during a lull in conversation. "Everything okay?" Maya looked around the table at faces that were perfectly made up, discussing lives that were perfectly curated. This isn't my world, Ethan. I keep waiting for someone to figure out I don't belong here." Ethan's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. "You belong wherever you choose to be, and tonight you chose to be here with me." When the music started and couples began moving toward the dance floor, Ethan stood and offered Maya his hand. "Shall we?" As they swayed together to a slow jazz standard, Maya felt some of the evening's tension melt away. Ethan was a good dancer, confident and gentle, making her feel graceful even though she was terrified of stepping on his expensive shoes. "Thank you," he said quietly as they moved together. "For what?" "For being here, for being real. Do you know how long it's been since I had a genuine conversation with someone at one of these things?" Maya looked up at him, seeing something vulnerable in his expression that made her forget, just for a moment, that this was all pretend. "This is the weirdest job I've ever had." Ethan laughed, the sound rich and warm. "It doesn't have to feel like a job. What does it feel like then?" Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, Maya saw something flicker across Ethan's face, something that looked almost like surprise. "I don't know yet," he said softly, "but I'm curious to find out." As they continued to dance, surrounded by the glittering world of Hollywood elite, Maya realized that somewhere between her terror and his vulnerability, something had shifted. The pretense was still there, the arrangement still purely transactional on paper, but underneath it all, something real was beginning to bloom, something that scared her more than any spotlight or camera flash ever could. The paparazzi photos were everywhere by Monday morning. Maya stared at her phone screen, scrolling through image after image of herself and Ethan at the gala. "Hollywood's new power couple," read one headline. "Ethan Cross's mystery woman revealed," proclaimed another. In every photo, she looked like she belonged, smiling, elegant, her hand naturally resting on Ethan's arm as if she'd been doing it for years. But Maya remembered the truth behind those pictures, the way her heart had hammered against her ribs every time a flash went off. The careful coaching Ethan had whispered in her ear before they approached each group of people, the practiced smile she'd worn until her cheeks ached. "Girl, you're famous!" Jessica squealed, bursting into their tiny kitchen where Maya sat with her coffee and phone. My friend just sent me this gossip blog post about you. They're calling you refreshingly normal and a breath of fresh air. Maya winced. They don't know anything about me. Exactly, that's what makes it so exciting. You're like this mystery woman who swept Hollywood's golden boy off his feet. If only it were that simple. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Saw the coverage. You look beautiful in every shot. Coffee later? I want to talk about next steps. Next steps. Right. Because this was still a business arrangement, no matter how real it had felt for those few moments on the dance floor. Maya met Ethan at a small cafe in Silver Lake, far from the Beverly Hills spotlight. He'd chosen a corner table where they could speak privately, and when she slid into the seat across from him, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Rough night? She asked. My publicist has been calling non-stop since 6 a.m. Apparently the response to us has been overwhelmingly positive. He made air quotes around the words. She wants to set up more appearances, maybe a weekend getaway that the paparazzi can accidentally discover. Maya stirred her coffee, watching the cream swirl into patterns. How do you stand it? Having your entire life planned out by other people? Honestly, I'm starting to wonder that myself. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her face. How are you handling all this? I know it's a lot. I keep thinking about my mom, Maya said quietly. She called this morning so excited about the photos. She thinks I'm finally dating someone who can take care of me. Maya's voice caught slightly. If she knew the truth, what would be so wrong with the truth? Maya looked up at him, surprised by the question. That I'm being paid to pretend to love you? That none of this is real? Something flickered across Ethan's face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. Is it not real? Any of it? The question hung between them like a challenge. Maya thought about Saturday night, the way her pulse had quickened when he'd taken her hand, the genuine laughter they'd shared, the moment during their dance when she'd forgotten there were cameras watching. I don't know, she admitted. That's what scares me. Their conversation was interrupted by Maya's phone ringing. She glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. It's the hospital, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan watched her face change as she answered. Hello? Yes, this is Maya. What? When? I'll be right there. She hung up, her hands shaking. It's my mom. She collapsed at work. They're taking her to Cedars-Sinai. Without hesitation, Ethan stood up. Come on, I'll drive you. You don't have to. Maya. His voice was firm but gentle. Let me help. The drive to the hospital was a blur of LA traffic and Maya's racing thoughts. Ethan navigated through the city with quiet efficiency while Maya called her mum's supervisor, trying to piece together what had happened. Her mother had been cleaning an office building when she'd suddenly become dizzy and fainted. The paramedics said her blood pressure was dangerously low. At the hospital, Maya paced the waiting room while doctors ran tests. Ethan sat quietly nearby, not trying to make conversation, just present. When other people in the waiting room began to recognize him, he politely deflected their attention, keeping his focus on Maya. Miss Delgado, a doctor in scrubs, approached them. So your mother is stable. We're running some additional tests, but it looks like she's been skipping doses of her medication to try to make it last longer. Maya's heart clenched. She knew money had been tight since her mother's cancer diagnosis, knew that the medications were expensive even with insurance, but she hadn't realized her mom had been rationing them. Can I see her? Of course. Room 314. Maya's mother looked so small in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines and IVs. Elena Delgado had always been a force of nature, working multiple jobs, raising Maya on her own, never complaining about the hand life had dealt them. Seeing her like this, vulnerable and weak, made Maya's chest tighten with guilt and fear. Mija, her mother said weakly when Maya entered the room. You didn't have to come. Of course I came. Maya pulled a chair close to the bed, taking her mother's hand. Mum, why didn't you tell me you were skipping your medication? Elena's eyes filled with tears. The prescriptions are so expensive, and with your school costs, I thought I could make them stretch a little longer. Mum, no, we'll figure out the money, we always do. That's your boyfriend out there, isn't it? The actor from the news. Maya glanced toward the door where Ethan waited in the hallway, giving them privacy. Yes, he's very handsome, and he seems to care about you. Bringing you here like this, if her mother only knew the truth. Maya squeezed her hand gently. Just rest, okay? Don't worry about anything else right now. When Maya stepped back into the hallway, she found Ethan on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. Yes, I understand the costs. No, insurance should cover it. Can you make sure the entire bill goes to my accountant? Thank you. He hung up and turned to Maya. I talked to the billing department. Your mother's stay is covered. Maya stared at him. Ethan, you can't. I can, and I did. It's nothing, Maya, really. It's not nothing to me. Her voice cracked with emotion. This is exactly what I was afraid of. I don't want to be some charity case you throw money at. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Maya's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from other people in the waiting room. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're paying for my fake affection and my mother's medical bills. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Is that really what you think? That your feelings are fake? Maya looked into his eyes and saw something there that made her breath catch. Something real and vulnerable and entirely too complicated for their arrangement. I don't know what's real anymore. Then let me make something very clear. Ethan's voice was quiet but intense. What I felt on Saturday night, dancing with you, talking to you, that wasn't fake. And what I'm feeling right now, watching you worry about your mother, wanting to help you because I care about you, that's not fake either. The words hung between them in the sterile hospital hallway, more honest than anything they'd shared since this began. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by everything. Her mother's condition, Ethan's confession, the complexity of emotions she'd been trying to suppress. This wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. I know. We agreed this was just business. I know. I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to be with someone like you. He reached out, gently touching her cheek. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are. That's what I fell for. Not some version of you in a designer dress, but the woman who works night shifts to put herself through school, who worries about her mother, who's brave enough to step into a world that intimidates her. Maya closed her eyes, leaning into his touch for just a moment. When she opened them again, she saw something that scared her more than any photographer or red carpet event. She saw a future she wanted, but didn't believe she deserved. My mother thinks you're my real boyfriend, she said quietly. What if I was? The question hit her like a physical blow. Ethan, I'm serious. What if we stopped pretending? What if this became real? Maya looked through the window into her mother's room, where Elena was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, no longer worried about medical bills or medication costs. She thought about the $50,000 that could transform her life, about the world of opportunities that came with being Ethan Cross's girlfriend, real or fake. But she also thought about the paparazzi, the constant scrutiny, the way people looked at her like she was either lucky or calculating. She thought about the vast differences in their backgrounds, their expectations, their futures. Wherever you are in the world right now, listening to this story, if you've ever stood at a crossroads where your heart wanted one thing but your fears whispered another, I want you to know you're not alone in that struggle. I need time, Maya said finally. This is all happening so fast, and with my mum, Ethan nodded, though she could see disappointment flicker across his face. Of course, whatever you need. As they sat in the hospital waiting room, maintaining their careful distance while cameras occasionally flashed outside, Maya realized that somewhere in the space between pretense and reality, she'd started falling for Ethan Cross, the quiet man who brought her coffee at 3 a.m. and paid for her mother's medical bills without expecting anything in return. The vulnerable person beneath the movie star facade who made her laugh and held her hand when she was scared. But loving him felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one step forward could either let her fly or send her tumbling into a world that would never truly accept her. The question was, did she have the courage to jump? 2 weeks after her mother's hospitalization, Maya found herself living in a strange limbo between two worlds. Her days were split between UCLA classes where she remained anonymous and evenings where she accompanied Ethan to premieres, dinners, and industry events where cameras followed their every move. The tabloids had dubbed them Et Maya, a couple name that made her cringe every time she saw it. The arrangement had evolved into something more complex than either of them had anticipated. Ethan no longer felt like a client or employer. He'd become something closer to a friend, someone she looked forward to seeing, someone whose texts made her smile even during her most stressful moments. But the unresolved tension from his hospital confession hung between them like an unfinished conversation they were both too afraid to complete. Maya was reviewing notes for her social work ethics class when her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Maya Delgado? The voice was crisp, professional, and entirely unfamiliar. Yes? This is Rebecca Martinez from Celebrity Insider magazine. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Ethan Cross. Maya's blood went cold. I'm sorry. I don't give interviews. I understand your reluctance, but I think you might want to hear what I have to say. You see, I've been investigating your background, and I've discovered some interesting information about your financial situation, about your mother's medical bills being mysteriously paid off, about the timing of when you and Ethan supposedly started dating. Maya's hands began to tremble. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Ethan Cross paid $50,000 to a Maya Delgado of East Los Angeles 3 weeks ago, 1 week before you two made your debut as a couple. Would you care to comment on that? The phone slipped from Maya's fingers, clattering to the floor of her apartment. She stared at it in horror as Rebecca's voice continued to speak from the speaker. How had they found out? How had someone traced the money? With shaking hands, Maya picked up the phone and ended the call. Immediately, she dialed Ethan's number. Maya, what's wrong? You sound... They know. The words came out as barely a whisper. A reporter from Celebrity Insider. She knows about the money, about the arrangement. She's going to publish it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Where are you? At home. Stay there. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, Ethan was at her door, his face grim. He'd clearly driven himself. No chauffeur, no entourage, just him in a baseball cap and sunglasses, looking as rattled as she felt. Tell me exactly what she said, he demanded as soon as he stepped inside. Maya recounted the conversation, watching Ethan's expression grow darker with each detail. When she finished, he ran his hands through his hair and began pacing her small living room. This is my fault, he said. I should have been more careful about how the payment was processed. My accountant warned me about paper trails, but I was so focused on helping you that I didn't think... It doesn't matter whose fault it is, Maya interrupted. What matters is that she's going to destroy both of us. You'll look like some pathetic actor who has to pay for a girlfriend, and I'll look like... She couldn't even finish the sentence. Like what? Like a prostitute, Ethan. Like someone who sold herself for money. Maya sank onto her couch, burying her face in her hands. My mother, my classmates, everyone at school, they're all going to think I'm some kind of escort. Ethan stopped pacing and knelt in front of her. Hey, look at me. When she didn't respond, he gently touched her hands. Maya, look at me. She raised her head and he could see tears streaming down her face. You are not a prostitute. You are not an escort. You are a woman who agreed to help someone, and I am a man who was lucky enough to meet you. Whatever they write, whatever people say, that's the truth. But it won't matter, will it? Once this story breaks, the truth won't matter. People will believe what they want to believe. Ethan's jaw tightened. Maybe not. Maybe we can get ahead of this. How? By telling our own story first, by controlling the narrative. Maya shook her head. You want to do an interview? Admit to the whole world that we've been lying? Not lying, just not telling the complete truth. Ethan sat beside her on the couch. Maya, what I told you at the hospital, I meant every word. This started as an arrangement, yes, but it became something real, at least for me. Ethan, Maya's voice was soft, uncertain. I know you feel it too. I see it in the way you look at me, the way you laugh at my stupid jokes, the way you fit perfectly against me when we're dancing. He turned to face her fully. We could make this real, we could... Stop. Maya stood up abruptly, moving away from him. Just stop, don't you see? This is exactly why this was a terrible idea from the beginning. I can't tell what's real anymore. Are you saying these things because you mean them? Or because you're panicking about the story coming out? The question hit Ethan like a slap. You think I'm manipulating you? I think you're a very good actor who's used to getting what he wants. Maya's voice was stronger now, anger mixing with her hurt. And right now, what you want is to not look like an idiot in the press. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Maya exploded. None of this is normal. Normal people don't pay strangers to be their girlfriends. Normal people don't have reporters investigating their bank accounts. Normal people don't have to worry about their lives being destroyed because they made one stupid decision when they were desperate. Ethan stood as well, his own temper flaring. You think this is easy for me? You think I enjoy having every aspect of my life scrutinized and judged? You think I wanted to fall for someone who won't even consider that my feelings might be genuine? How can I tell? Maya shot back. You're literally paid to pretend to have feelings for people. It's your job. The words hung in the air between them, cruel and cutting. Maya regretted them the moment they left her mouth, but she couldn't take them back. She watched Ethan's face close off, the vulnerable man she'd glimpsed disappearing behind the polished facade of the movie star. Right, he said quietly, because that's all I am to you, a paycheck and a performance. Ethan, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. His voice was cold now, professional. And maybe you're right. Maybe this was all a mistake. He moved toward the door and Maya felt panic rise in her chest. Where are you going? To call my publicist to figure out how to handle this mess. He paused at the door, not looking back at her. The money is yours to keep, regardless of what happens. That was our agreement. I don't want your money. Now he did turn around, and the look in his eyes was devastating. Then what do you want, Maya? Because I've tried being honest about my feelings and you don't believe me. I've tried helping you and your family, and you resent me for it. I've tried giving you space, and you push me further away. So tell me, what exactly do you want from me? Maya opened her mouth to respond, but no words came, because the truth was too terrifying to admit, even to herself. She wanted him. She wanted the fairy tale. She wanted to believe that a man like Ethan Cross could genuinely fall for a woman like her, that love could bridge the gap between their worlds. But she was too scared to reach for it, too afraid of the fall if it turned out to be an illusion. When she didn't answer, Ethan nodded slowly. That's what I thought. After he left, Maya sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by the silence of her choices. Her phone buzzed with messages, from Jessica, from her mother, from numbers she didn't recognize. Word was already starting to spread. The story would break within hours, and her life as she knew it would be over. She thought about calling Ethan back, about apologizing, about telling him that yes, she was falling for him despite every rational thought in her head. But what would be the point? Even if his feelings were real, even if they could work through this crisis together, there would always be another one. Another reporter, another scandal, another reason why a girl from East LA and a Hollywood star made no sense together. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting her small apartment in shades of gold and shadow, Maya made a decision that felt like cutting out a piece of her own heart. If this was going to end, and it had to end, didn't it? Then she would end it on her terms. She picked up her phone and began typing a message that would change everything. Where in the world are you following this heartbreak with me? Sometimes the hardest decisions come when we're most afraid of hoping for something beautiful. Tell me from which corner of the earth you're listening to Maya's struggle. Maya stared at the message she'd typed on her phone, her thumb hovering over the send button. The words felt final, devastating. Ethan, I think we should end this arrangement before the story breaks. It's better for both of us. Thank you for everything. Before she could lose her nerve, she hit send. The response came back within minutes. If that's what you want. 4 words that felt like a door slamming shut on the most complicated, beautiful, terrifying chapter of her life. Maya spent the night lying awake, checking news websites obsessively, waiting for the story to break. But Wednesday morning came and went with nothing. Then Thursday. By Friday, she began to wonder if maybe the reporter had decided not to publish, or if Ethan's team had somehow stopped it. That illusion shattered when Jessica burst into their apartment Friday evening, laptop in hand and an expression of barely contained excitement on her face. Maya, you need to see this now. If it's the Celebrity Insider story, I already know. It's not Celebrity Insider. It's Ethan. Jessica set the laptop on their small dining table, and Maya found herself staring at a video titled, The Truth About Love, Fame and Being Human. Ethan Cross. It had been posted on his official social media accounts 3 hours ago and already had over 2 million views. Play it, Maya whispered. The video opened on Ethan sitting in what looked like his home. Not some glossy interview setup, but his actual living room. Casual in a plain white t-shirt, his hair slightly messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked directly into the camera, and Maya could see the vulnerability in his eyes that she'd come to recognize. Hi everyone. I'm not great at these videos, so bear with me. I wanted to talk to you directly about something that's about to become public, and I want you to hear the truth from me first. Maya's heart began to race. By now, you've probably seen pictures of me with Maya Delgado. The tabloids have called us Hollywood's newest couple, and honestly, I let that story stand because it was easier than explaining the truth. But the truth is always more complicated than a headline, isn't it? Ethan paused, taking a breath that Maya could see was shaky. 3 weeks ago, I was having the worst week of my career. My team was pressuring me to find a girlfriend to improve my public image, and I was feeling like a fraud in my own life. I walked into a diner at 3 a.m., probably looking like hell, and I met this woman who was working the night shift while putting herself through college. She was kind to me, not because I was famous, but because that's who she is. She's kind to everyone. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she watched him speak. I made Maya a proposition that sounds terrible when I say it out loud. I asked her to pretend to be my girlfriend. I offered her money because I could see she was struggling financially, and I thought I could solve both our problems with one arrangement. She said yes, but not because she was greedy or calculating. She said yes because her mother is fighting cancer, and the medical bills were overwhelming, and Maya would do anything to help her family. The camera caught every emotion that flickered across Ethan's face: regret, pain, and something that looked like love. What I didn't expect was to fall for her completely honestly. The woman you've seen in those photos, graceful, genuine, beautiful. That's not an act, that's Maya. And what you can't see in those photos is how she makes me laugh, how she challenges me to be better, how she sees through all the Hollywood bullshit to whatever's real underneath. Maya was crying now, Jessica's hand squeezing her shoulder. Maya ended our arrangement yesterday. She was afraid that when the truth came out, and it was going to come out, people would judge her, judge us, judge what we had together. And she was probably right. People will judge. They'll say she was a gold digger, or that I was pathetic for paying someone to date me. But here's what I know. Ethan leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera with an intensity that made Maya feel like he was talking only to her. I would rather be honest about an imperfect beginning than lie about a perfect one. Yes, our relationship started as a business arrangement, but somewhere between that first night at the diner and the last time I held her hand, it became real, at least for me. And if that makes me pathetic or desperate, then I guess that's what I am, because I'd rather be pathetically in love with Maya Delgado than perfectly alone without her. The video showed Ethan running his hand through his hair, looking exhausted. I know this probably sounds like damage control, or a publicity stunt, or whatever cynical interpretation you want to put on it. But Maya, if you're watching this, and I hope you are, I need you to know that every word I said to you was real. The money, the arrangement, all of that was just circumstances. What happened between us was choice. My choice to fall for you. Your choice to let me get close enough to see who you really are. He paused, and Maya could see him struggling with emotion. I don't know what happens next. Maya deserves someone who can give her a normal life. Someone whose biggest problem isn't which red carpet to attend. But I also know that what we had was worth fighting for, worth being honest about, even if it costs me everything. The video ended with Ethan looking directly into the camera one last time. Sometimes the best things in life start in the messiest ways. Sometimes you have to risk everything for something real, and sometimes being honest is the only way to find out if what you thought was pretend was actually love. The screen went black, and Maya sat in stunned silence. Jessica was openly crying beside her. Oh my God, Maya, that man is in love with you. Maya's phone was buzzing constantly. Calls, texts, notifications. She ignored them all, staring at the frozen final frame of Ethan's face on the laptop screen. I have to go, she said suddenly, standing up. Where? To him. I have to... Maya stopped, panic setting in. What if it's too late? What if he said all that but doesn't actually want me back? What if... Maya... Jessica grabbed her shoulders. Stop. Did you see that video? That man just confessed his love to the entire world. He just risked his career, his reputation, everything, to tell the truth about you, about how he feels. Maya nodded, wiping her tears. I need to change. You need to go exactly as you are. Right now, before you lose your nerve. Maya looked down at herself. Old jeans, a UCLA sweatshirt with a coffee stain, her hair in a messy bun. She looked like exactly what she was, a broke college student who'd accidentally fallen in love with a movie star. What if this is all wrong? What if we're too different? What if you're perfect for each other, and you're just too scared to find out? Maya grabbed her keys and headed for the door. She had no plan, no prepared speech, no idea what she was going to say when she saw him. All she knew was that she'd spent 3 days feeling like she'd lost something irreplaceable, and she couldn't spend another day wondering what if. The drive to Ethan's house in the Hollywood Hills felt like the longest 20 minutes of her life. When she pulled up to his gate in her beat-up Honda, next to photographers who'd clearly gathered after the video went viral, Maya almost lost her nerve. But then she thought about Ethan's face in that video, the way he'd looked when he said her name, the risk he'd taken for her. She buzzed the intercom. Maya? Ethan's voice came through the speaker, disbelief evident even through the static. Can I come in? We need to talk. The gate opened without another word. Ethan was waiting at his front door when she pulled into the driveway, and Maya felt her heart stop. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed and tired, but when he saw her, his entire face transformed with hope. Maya got out of her car and walked toward him, aware that cameras were probably capturing every moment from the street below, but no longer caring. When she reached him, they stood facing each other for a long moment, 3 feet apart but feeling like miles. I saw the video, Maya said finally. I meant every word. I know. Maya's voice broke slightly. Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I was too scared to believe that someone like you could really love someone like me. Maya, let me finish, please. She took a shaky breath. I've been poor my whole life. I've watched my mother work 3 jobs and still worry about paying rent. I've worn second-hand clothes and eaten ramen for dinner and never, not once, imagined that I could have something beautiful. When you offered me that arrangement, I thought it was the best I could hope for, pretending to have something I could never really deserve. Ethan stepped closer, but Maya held up a hand. But then I got to know you, the real you. Not the movie star, but the man who tips diner waitresses too much and worries about disappointing people and makes terrible jokes when he's nervous. And I started to fall for you, and it terrified me because I thought if you really knew me, really saw my life, my world, you'd realize you'd made a mistake. Maya, look at me. She raised her eyes to meet his, and the love she saw there nearly broke her. You are not a mistake. You are not something I settled for or something I'm embarrassed by. You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't care if the whole world thinks we don't make sense together. What if they're right? Then we'll prove them wrong, together. Maya felt the last of her resistance crumble. I love you, she whispered. I love you, and it scares me, but I love you. Ethan closed the distance between them in 2 steps, cupping her face in his hands. Say it again. I love you, Ethan Cross, and I'm done being afraid of it. When he kissed her, Maya felt like she was finally coming home. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of the bathroom mirror of Ethan's, their house, adjusting the simple gold necklace he'd given her for her birthday. It was nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth or Hollywood glamour, just a delicate chain with a small star pendant that caught the morning light. Like everything else in their relationship now, it was real, thoughtful, and perfectly them. The past half year had been a whirlwind of adjustment, growth, and learning to navigate their relationship under the intense scrutiny of public attention. The response to Ethan's video had been mixed. Some people praised his honesty and vulnerability, while others criticized him for the arrangement itself. But gradually, as they appeared together at events and in interviews, always honest about their unconventional beginning, public opinion had shifted towards something Maya never expected: acceptance and even admiration for their authenticity. You almost ready? Ethan called from the bedroom. We don't want to be late for your graduation. Maya smiled at her reflection. Today was the day she'd been working toward for 4 years, graduating from UCLA with her degree in social work. The girl who used to serve coffee at 3 a.m. was about to walk across a stage and receive her diploma, and the journey felt both surreal and entirely earned. Coming, she called back, taking one last look at herself. She wore a simple navy dress under her graduation gown, elegant but understated, bought with money she'd earned from her new job at a non-profit organization that helped low-income families navigate the healthcare system. It was work that mattered to her, work that felt like a calling rather than just a paycheck. In the bedroom, Ethan was adjusting his tie, looking handsome but nervous. He'd insisted on wearing a suit to her graduation, wanting to honor the importance of the day, but Maya could see the anxiety in his movements. Hey, she said, walking over to him. You okay? I'm proud of you, he said simply. So incredibly proud. And I know your mom would be bursting with pride too. Maya's smile faltered slightly at the mention of her mother. Eleanor had passed away 3 months ago, peacefully in her sleep after a final battle with cancer. But those last months had been good ones, filled with quality time, proper medical care, and the joy of seeing her daughter happy and in love. Eleanor had adored Ethan, not for his fame or money, but for the way he looked at Maya like she was the most precious thing in his world. She would have loved seeing this day, Maya agreed, her voice soft. She always said education was the one thing no one could ever take away from you. Ethan pulled her into his arms, careful not to wrinkle her graduation gown. She was right, and she was so proud of you, Maya. Not because of me, not because of any of the opportunities that came from our relationship, but because of who you are and what you've accomplished on your own. Maya leaned into his embrace, drawing strength from his presence. The grief of losing her mother was still raw, but it was tempered by gratitude for the time they'd had, and the knowledge that Eleanor had died knowing Maya was loved and cared for. We should go, Maya said, pulling back to look at him. Jessica said she's saving seats, and you know how crazy parking gets at UCLA. As they drove through Los Angeles in Ethan's car, he'd learned to drive himself everywhere now. Valuing the privacy and normalcy it provided, Maya reflected on how much had changed, not just in her circumstances, but in her understanding of herself and what she deserved. The early months of their real relationship hadn't been easy. There had been paparazzi camping outside her classes, strangers recognizing her at the grocery store, and countless articles analyzing everything from her fashion choices to her academic performance. Maya had struggled with the attention, sometimes feeling like she was living in a fishbowl. But Ethan had been patient, helping her develop strategies for dealing with the public scrutiny while never asking her to change who she was fundamentally. They'd worked with a media consultant to learn how to protect their privacy while still being accessible enough to maintain Ethan's career. Most importantly, they'd learned to communicate honestly about their fears, their hopes, and their boundaries. "There's something I want to give you," Ethan said as they sat in traffic near the campus. "Before we get there, and everything gets crazy with your family and friends," he reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small wrapped box. Maya's heart skipped a beat, not because she expected a proposal, but because Ethan's gifts always carried such thoughtful meaning. "You didn't have to get me anything," she said, taking the box. "Open it." Inside was a key, old, ornate, and clearly vintage. Maya looked at him questioningly. "It's the key to the community center in East LA where you're going to be working after graduation," Ethan explained. "I know it's symbolic since they'll give you a real key on your first day, but I wanted you to have something that represents what you're building. Not what I've given you, not what we've built together, but what you're creating with your own hands and your own heart." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Ethan, you're going to change lives, Maya. You're going to help families navigate systems that are designed to be confusing and overwhelming. You're going to be the person for other people that you wished existed when your mom was first diagnosed." His voice was thick with emotion. "And I'm so proud to be with someone who chooses to make the world better every single day." Maya leaned across the console to kiss him, tasting salt from the tears that had spilled over. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "Not because you're Ethan Cross, the movie star, not because you changed my circumstances, but because you're the man who sees who I really am and loves her anyway." "Always," he murmured back. The graduation ceremony was beautiful, held in the outdoor amphitheater with the California sun streaming down on hundreds of students and their families. Maya spotted Jessica and her boyfriend in the crowd, along with several classmates who'd become real friends over the years. Ethan sat with them, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, but still drawing occasional glances and whispered conversations. When Maya's name was called and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the applause from her section was thunderous. She could see Ethan on his feet, clapping and cheering with an enthusiasm that made her laugh, even as she tried to maintain her composure. Later, at the small celebration dinner they'd planned at a quiet restaurant in Westwood, Maya found herself surrounded by the people who mattered most, her chosen family of friends, classmates, and Ethan. The conversation flowed easily, ranging from career plans to terrible graduation day stories to debates about the best taco trucks in LA. "Speech," Jessica called out as they finished dessert. "Maya needs to give a speech." "No speeches," Maya protested, but Ethan was already standing, tapping his glass with a spoon. "Actually, I have something to say," he announced, and the table fell quiet. Maya looked up at him, suddenly nervous. They'd talked about the future, about moving in together permanently, about the possibility of marriage someday down the line, but always as abstract concepts, not immediate plans. "6 months ago, I thought I knew what I wanted," Ethan began, his eyes focused on Maya. "I wanted someone to make me look good, to fit into my world, to solve a professional problem. What I got instead was someone who challenged me to be better, who showed me what real strength looks like, who taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits your life perfectly. It's about finding someone worth reshaping your life around." He reached into his jacket pocket, and Maya's breath caught. "Maya, you've already given me your answer to the most important question. You've said yes to building a real life together, to loving each other through all the messiness and uncertainty and joy that comes with being human. But I want to make it official." He dropped to one knee beside her chair, pulling out a ring that was exactly what Maya would have chosen. Simple, elegant, with a stone that caught the light without being ostentatious. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the love you've given me?" Maya looked around the table at the faces of people she loved, all of them smiling and crying and holding their breath for her answer. She thought about the girl who'd been serving coffee 6 months ago, afraid to dream of anything beyond paying her bills and getting through school. She thought about her mother, who'd always told her that love would find her when she was ready to receive it. And she thought about Ethan, not the movie star, not the millionaire, but the man who'd held her hand in a hospital waiting room, who'd risked his career to tell the world the truth about their love, who'd given her space to grow while never letting her doubt that he'd be there when she was ready. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and strong despite the tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes." As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her amid the cheers and applause of their friends, Maya realized that this was what happily ever after actually looked like. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and earned and exactly right for the people they'd become. Months later, when reporters asked her about their love story, Maya would always smile and say the same thing. "Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings start with the most honest conversations. We built something real from something that started as pretend, and that's the foundation everything else rests on. Honesty, growth, and the courage to love someone exactly as they are." And if you followed our journey from that late-night diner meeting to this moment of pure happiness, I hope you know that real love, messy, complicated, transformative love, is worth every risk, every vulnerable moment, every leap of faith it takes to find it, wherever in the world you might be searching for it. Their story became one that people told when they wanted to believe in second chances, in the power of honesty, and in love that transcends the boundaries society tries to build between different worlds. Because sometimes, when you're brave enough to be authentic, you discover that the person you are is exactly the person someone else has been hoping to find.